Good afternoon. Welcome back to Tony's Tangent. We're here at the Greater Bethel AME Church in Gainesville, Florida. We're here with Pastor Ron Rawls, and you know this guy. We're going to go ahead and take it away.
Glad to see that you can make it back. It is my privilege, it is my honor to be with a person that I admire from a distance, and now I get the opportunity to meet him face to face. He is a father, a husband, a grandfather of 4. I just found that out not too long ago. He is also an advocate and an activist in the community. And before we get into it, I just want him to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. I know you were in St. Augustine and now you're back home in Gainesville. Tell us a little bit about, what you've been doing, your term as a pastor, and what you do in the community, so forth and so on.
Okay. Well, this is actually where I began my ministry. A little bit after being called to the ministry, one of our bishops assigned me to Greater Bethel in 1996 as their young adult pastor. Then in 99, after my final ordination, I was sent off to pastor, and I've been away for 21 years pastoring. The most recent stop was in St. Augustine. I was there for 13 years. For me, you can't pastor without being connected to the community, and as it relates to salvation, I don't want salvation if it's not included with liberation. And so liberation theology for me is just as important as salvation. And so my involvement in the community is to make sure that I work to make sure that my community is liberated in every aspect. And so that's what I do. And so in St. Augustine, if it had anything to do with liberation, whether it's getting infrastructure for our communities, water and sewer, whether it's educating our children, whatever the issue was, we fought for the liberation of our people.
I got you. So on January 18th,
Yes, sir.
MLK, I guess it'll be an award that you will be receiving in St. Augustine. Can you tell the viewers exactly what that entails? And really you downplaying what you did in St. Augustine because you kind of ruffled a little feathers. And can you tell us a little bit about what did you do that ruffled those feathers and why people felt like they had to, kind of oppose you in the way they did? And can you tell us what you're being honored for and, the level of degree that you're being, distinguished and you're being called out for what you've been called out for? So once again, I just want to give a quick shout out to you. I'm proud of you. I'm happy that you're receiving this award, but tell us a little bit why you're receiving the award and what does that come from doing in that community?
Okay, so in St. Augustine, in my opinion, the prophet speaks on behalf of God for the people. And in many cases, the responsibility is to speak to those in authority and demand what God requires for his people. And so it's not my job to be friends with the governing authorities. It's to make sure the governing authorities are doing the right thing. And so in St. Augustine, anywhere from when we were redistricting back in 2010, and they were trying to make an already small population of black voters even smaller with the redistricting, fighting that by myself. If it was when the disparities in education were so low and tutoring wasn't getting the job done, and the school district didn't want to make changes to address a failing black population in the educational system, starting a charter school ourselves. If it was fighting for infrastructure over in West Augustine, trying to get modern sewer placed in West Augustine, to gentrification, trying to slow down gentrification in Lincolnville, and the most recent thing that we did was to have some Confederate symbols and monuments removed. There's no need for, if black folk don't appreciate it, our tax dollars shouldn't be supporting it sitting in the middle of a square that our money goes to fund. And so we had 2 Confederate monuments, one that the city owned and one with the University of Florida owned. And 27.
Wait, stop. University of Florida owned one of those?
Yes.
I didn't see that on the news. I saw the one that the city owned, but they.
University of Florida was smart. The fight took just as long. We called both of them out in August of 2017 and demanded the removal. University of Florida kind of always stayed low key, and it was hard to fight them because they were at a distance, and we really couldn't get the connection with the students here to make.
See, that's
fuss.
why I'm a Florida State fan. No, I'm just
playing. But we really couldn't get the connection with the students to make a big fuss.
Right.
And so St. Augustine was always at the forefront, but we were always pushing both. And so the thing that we were pushing out there was called the University of Florida and St. Augustine. And but University of Florida was just simply following St. Augustine's lead. So we knew that if we got St. Augustine to move, University of Florida would fall in because they didn't want the black eye. And so when we finally, 3 years later, were able to get the University of Florida, get St. Augustine to move, University of Florida came in, so where St. Augustine took almost 6 weeks to get theirs out of the way, University of Florida came and snatched theirs up overnight.
quick.
And so you didn't even have time for it to be a big deal. And so they were a little bit smarter as it relates to PR than St. Augustine was. St. Augustine got the real black eye, but both of them were guilty of putting monuments of hate and intimidation in public spaces. And so that was the most recent thing that brought a lot of attention and things like that. But for me, all of it's just important. And with that piece right there, that was probably one of the least important things that we did, because there's still work to do after you pull down the symbols. Those were just symbols. A lot of the other stuff we did was deeper than the symbols. We were actually doing the work, dealing with the gentrification, the infrastructure improvement, and things like that. But those symbols were gods to white supremacists and closet white supremacists. And so when you start messing with those gods, then you end up with some issues. So that's why it seems that it was the biggest issue. But on the 18th, we have some folk from the community that wants to do an appreciation, and I think it's called the Social Justice Award.
Okay.
And so they're presenting that, and I'm very appreciative. But
who's putting that on, and where is it going to be at? So we can. Are they going to be streaming it where we can actually see it? Is it?
I'm not sure. I'm sure that I'll have somebody running it from my page. I'm not sure what the group is not necessarily one particular group. I think it's people in the St. Augustine community that felt like something should be done, and so they put the event together. And I'm appreciative. There's a guy named Dr. Robert Halen. He's the one that called Dr. King to St. Augustine to help. And Robert Halen is known as the father of civil rights in St. Augustine.
Right.
He was a local dentist in the 60s, and the Klan took him out in the woods and broke all of his fingers back in the 60s, so he couldn't practice his livelihood anymore. And so Dr. Halen had a conversation with me somewhere around 2012 or so, and he would always, when he came back up, we would always talk, because he knew what I was doing was a continuation of what he did. And he told me, and he said, Reverend Ron, they appreciate you. And he said they call me back all the time now to give me all these awards. He's like, but when I was here, they wanted me gone. And he was like, so you just keep up the work that you're doing. And so now that I'm gone, it's nice to get a little acknowledgement, but Dr. Haley prepared me for it.
Okay. A couple of things real quick. Let's go back to the University of Florida, because that kind of caught me off guard.
Okay.
They play LSU later on this evening, and the football team is predominantly black. So I'm wondering, how would the people feel in the times we're living in now with the social unrest, the whole nine, if the University of Florida had waited until the city stepped up first to remove some of these symbols of hate prior to them doing it? And do you think they did it for PR reasons, or do you think they eventually would have done it on their own in terms of removing the statue, University of Florida?
No, hate doesn't voluntarily do anything. And so everything that's done, I don't care what school or what entity it is, most of them are based and rooted in white supremacy. And so unless there's pressure and unless it begins to make them look bad, they're not just going to voluntarily go and make the move. University of Florida's president, he came and publicly made this statement when they had made a couple mistakes on campus with racism and said how he, didn't agree with any of, the racism and all the other kind of stuff. And so we brought that back and said, well, you got this monument over here in St. Augustine, and we constantly tried to lift that up. But no, that was strictly done. That's my alma mater, but that was strictly done. I got enough sense to know that was strictly done as a PR move. But it's fine with me as long as it was done.
Now, this is the elephant in the room, or the elephant in the church, rather, that I want to address, which is, to me, you are a dinosaur. You are someone who, let's just call it what it is, in terms of being a pastor, in terms of being a black pastor, in the space that you operate. I don't see a lot of pastors doing what you do today in 2020. Now, that's not to say that there are not some out there, because there are a few that I see. But for the most part, I feel like, particularly with the bigger churches, they could have more of an influence on the community. They could have more of an influence politically in the community in terms of economic empowerment, in terms of doing something tangible and bringing some tangibles to the community. In your opinion, is that just a perception that people have about pastors in terms of them not doing more and feeling like they could do more? Or do you feel like, there are some out there, but for the most part, these guys could do more, they just don't do it right now? What is your overall view in terms of your peers that are doing what you're doing on a regular basis?
Well, unfortunately, I think that in many cases our theology is just infected bad. Mm-hmm. It's a theology of white supremacy. White supremacy used the Christian scriptures to position itself to where it could have a long run. It used scriptures in a way and manipulated scriptures to ensure that its dynasty would run for a long time. And so, right. Unfortunately, a lot of the theology that many churches utilize, it's not even a theology that speaks revolution, speaks against white supremacy, and literally we try to build relationships. And so the larger a church gets, sometimes it's more dependent on relationships of others. To be able to stay large, to bring in the funding and to do the things that are necessary. But we have to always remember that God called us to be prophets in a community. And so whatever funding or relationships you think that you're getting, God provided those. And so when we begin to neglect the call and not do the work that God has called us to do, you can have all the relationships that you want, but in the end, it's going to fall because it's not a solid foundation. And so we would stop focusing on these relationships and call the relationships out. I don't go in. I attended a ministerial alliance. I was invited soon as people knew when I was coming to Gainesville. Political officials and pastors were calling to connect.
Okay.
And I guess they knew what was happening there. And they wanted to try to smooth things and work it out before it came here. And so, right. And so I sat down and had a couple. One of the meetings was a ministerial alliance, and they were really excited. And I was honest with them up front. They had asked me to take a lead on something, and I said, no, let me feel y'all and y'all feel me. Because I need to know what spirit they operate in. If they are part of the problem, I can't connect with you because you're the enemy now. And it doesn't matter whether you call yourself a Christian or not. Are you fighting for the people? Are you fighting for the disenfranchised, the poor, the people that are oppressed? If you're not fighting for them, which means that you're gonna have to come out against the people that are doing it to them, you my enemy. And so I told them, let me figure y'all out, and y'all figure me out, and then we'll start talking about that stuff a little later on. So I don't naturally make the connection just because somebody called themselves a Christian. I think that God has called me to speak on behalf of humanity, and so that little cross somebody wears around their neck doesn't connect me.
We're from Jacksonville. And I feel as if in the black community, you know, I can throw a rock and hit the church, particularly the black church. They're there just like the liquor store is there. But just like the liquor store that doesn't bring anything substantial, sometimes I feel like that church is not bringing anything substantial. You are a breath of fresh air in terms of being able to talk unapologetically black and still be someone who still operates amongst the clergy to do your thing. Why do you feel like, and again, this is me making the assumption based on my experiences, but what is it about you that you have this comfort and the ability to speak your mind, as if I feel like in some cases, some of the pastors back in Jacksonville, I get the sense that they are afraid. They may agree with you, but in public spaces, they feel like they're afraid to speak about what's going on in the black community and how they can empower the black community for the benefit of the black community. Do you think there's a level of fear, or do you think they've bought and paid off? What is it?
I can only speak for me, but for me, my comfort level comes because I could care less about relationships. I don't go and hang out with folk. I don't go to lunch, and I could care less about relationships. Mm-hmm. My calling is first and foremost to my family. And then after my family has a big smile on their face, and I've done what I'm supposed to do with my family, and then I'm called to my community and my church. And but personal relationships, I could care less about personal relationships. They don't impress me. I got a family. I got a relationship with my family.
Right.
I'm trying to build relationships with other people.
And how long have you been here in Gainesville?
All my life.
How long have you been pastoring since you came back from St. Augustine?
I was assigned here on October the 30th, 2020. So it's what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
So you still kind of filling out the political landscape.
I've been to a commission meeting, and I explained to them that I would love to be their friend, but I have no problem being their enemy. And so.
Oh, you told them that up front?
Yeah. I mean, because they know who I am.
Right.
And so I'm sure it's a few of them that don't know me, but it's enough to know me. And so I explained, I really want to be your friend because I don't like to fight. I fight because I have to. And so I really would like to work with leaders. And but if they are hell bent on working against my people, well, we got to fight now. And so I just wanted to make that real clear, and it had a better feel than what I'm used to. And so I'm looking forward to it, but I always have a little skepticism. But I'm looking forward to working with the officials in Gainesville.
I got you, and we talked a little bit off air about this, but you know, if you could, you know, kind of look in the camera and tell the young pastors who are aspiring to kind of go down the same road you went down, what to expect in terms of activism, in terms of leading your flock, in terms of having that support. What can they expect on this road? And tell them, you know, sometimes it's going to be some good, sometimes it's going to be some bad. But from your perspective, if you were giving advice to a young Pastor Rawls, what would you tell to that young person coming up?
I mean, it's nothing more fulfilling than looking at your work and seeing the fruit of it, seeing the accomplishments that follow. And but focus more on the relationship with God and why God, who could have chosen anybody, chose you to do the work. And when you think about the fact that he chose you, knowing your dirt, knowing what you come through, knowing where you've been, knowing the stuff that you know that you're not even really qualified to do, but he chose you anyway. Now, when you think about the work that he's called you to do, think deeper than what happens inside of these walls. God didn't call you to pastor inside of these walls. The walls are where you prepare the people, and then you have to go out and make a difference. And so you want to always ask yourself, if my church shut down tomorrow, would my community know that we were even gone? And if you know in your heart that your community wouldn't even realize you were gone, you're wasting God's time. God called you. Go do the work. Don't worry about the relationships. God will take care of that.
Wow, that's powerful. In closing, we just want you to let the people know, when it's service. Are you having a watch night service? I know during the holidays with COVID going on. So just let everybody know when your services are available in terms of Bible study, watch night service, and what you have going on, and kind of where they can get in contact with you if they need to get in contact with you for anything.
So our website is gbgville.com. If you go to University of Florida, it's gbattheswamp.com. But go to we are strictly virtual. I'm not putting anybody's life at risk.
Amen.
There's no need. If God is opening up a new door for us and an opportunity to where before if I had 400 or 500 people in church, but now on Sunday morning I got 2,000 people watching. That's called enlarging the territory. So we don't run from that. God has given us a platform that we can grow. We're making it completely virtual. I just sat down with 96, Sister Alexander, 96 years old. She asked me to come to her house and get her comfortable with this virtual. Went and set her up and put her Zoom icon right on her desktop and put her website icon right on the window and told her from church, click this. For any meeting that we have, click this. And if a 96-year-old woman can do it, and in St. Augustine I had a 97-year-old woman, anybody can do it. And so I'm not putting anybody's life at jeopardy. We are totally virtual. And when this thing gets straightened out a little bit, when we learn how to be obedient and this thing gets under control, I'll bring God's people back in to God's house. But not before. I will not have anybody's life and their blood on my hand because I was too hard-headed to sit down when God said to sit down and slow down. So you can find it on the website, gbgville.com, but it's just as good.
All right, in closing, I just want to again thank you, Pastor Rawls, an inspiration of mine. Like I said, man, a diamond amongst a lot of coal. I appreciate you letting us come into your church home. Driving from Jacksonville to Gainesville, been a nice little trip. It's okay that you're a Gator. But in closing, I'm definitely appreciative to be around people like Pastor Rawls. And until next time, you know what it is, stay black.